call to order the June 13th, 2023 regular board meeting for Competitive Edge Charter Academy. I'd like to ask everybody to stand and ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will note that all board members are present this evening. We'll move on to 1.04, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening? Okay. Hearing no changes, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by board member Bannister and I have a second by board member Coe to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries 5-0. Now we're moving on to our public hearing, and I'm assuming there's going to be a presentation along with this. Mr. Mead, right? Come on up. This is regarding the 2023-24 CECA Local Control and Accountability Plan LCAP.
Board President Snellings, members of the board, members of cabinet.
Hear me okay?
There you
All right. Thank you. I apologize.
go.
Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening to talk about our local control and accountability plan. The good thing about this is we're lucky to have our advisory committee representative here. So this has been a picture we've been painting throughout the school year. So we're going to talk about it a little bit more here. All right. So at this meeting, we need to make sure that we are going over our budget overview for parents. The supplement portion, we've actually gone over that mid-year portion prior. And finally, our LCAP, including those action tables, will go over where we're at presently and look towards the future. So this process, like I said, it's kind of nice. It gets to take place transparently in front of our board, in front of the public throughout the school year. So started way back in the fall and the winter and kind of developing our timeline for our LCAP for this year, looking at the data that came along with that. As data becomes available, I like to put it in front of our parents and in front of our staff. So we're all part of this. January through May, we give a survey every year, actually multiple surveys to our families, our students, our staff, just to kind of get the temperature of how things are and where we can improve. We like to move fast when needed. We have our Parent Community Advisory Committee that meets every Tuesday before our board meetings, along with our school site council. We have our ELAC meetings that take place intermittently throughout the quarters. Our counselor, student, and teacher meetings as well. So we want to include as many stakeholders as possible. Then our plan development, March through May. Mr. Gregory shared often kind of the trends and input that we discussed during our advisory committee meetings and how we came about looking at our goals and then developing actions that responded to the data that we were receiving. And our final plan and preview happening tonight, and then hopefully board action happening on the June 20th. So our budget overview for parents here. You can see that the largest chunk is coming from the majority of our LCFF funds there. The part that we're looking at for our LCAP is that supplemental and concentration grant, the $434,958. And so that number actually has increased. Our population of socioeconomically disadvantaged students actually increased significantly. And so it's allowed us to do some special things coming this next school year. So some of our successes this year, and these are things that you've heard. We've shared these things with you because we've been proud of them throughout the year, implementing our math intervention program for students and our reading intervention programs for all of our students in the school day. That included bringing on parents and training them. We recognized them a couple of board meetings ago. We talked about the increase in students in receiving intervention, how they're outpacing growth of our students not receiving interventions, proving its success. We had our Cal Hope grant that has been implemented throughout the school year to support students socially and emotionally. And we've seen some great growth in attendance, in overall attitudes and academics because of that. We talked about our decrease, although we don't have a large amount of students that are suspended year to year. We have seen a slight decrease, even in that small, less than 1% number. Talked about our implementation of our common formative assessments, and that's a district initiative, but our teachers have really jumped on board and spent a lot of time in that data protocol following the giving of the CFAs, and a lot of previews and planning that goes along with that to help our students be successful. Over 1,000 hours of community service coming back from the pandemic, seeing our families kind of jump on board with getting out there and taking action in our community. And then right now, preliminary numbers looks like about a 3% decrease in chronic absenteeism this school year. So a lot of positives to celebrate. So areas of need, and we talked about this 2 board meetings ago, just our decrease in our state test scores. Just recently finished up our state testing. We have numbers pouring in, and you know, the thing that was neat to see is when I let the staff know that you could go student by student and see how they did on the state test. Every teacher computer open and starting to go through their classes, and to see that excitement and wanting to see how their kids did after so much effort is great. But that's an area of need. We wanted to decrease that chronic absenteeism. We saw a need in phonics and phonemic awareness. And so it's easy to look at the data and see that students are struggling in the area of reading, certain students, but getting to the bottom of why and then taking steps to address that area of need. We've seen increase in the number of students receiving intervention. Right now, we're a little over 20%. We want to get that number down to about 10 to 15% of our students needing intervention in the school day. And then just our English language learners, the fact that 53% of them showing growth, that's great. We want to be better. CECA is a very tight-knit community. We like our families to be involved, and so there's a lot that we do to engage our partners, all of our stakeholders. Some of them are listed over here, but increasing that the interventions and making sure that families know why is your student in intervention and what you can do to support them at home as well. Increasing parent engagement opportunities, getting parents back on campus. That's been something that you know, it's great that virtually we can meet, and so that makes it possible for people to attend virtually more often. But now we want to get them back there in person, and so that's been a big drive, especially toward the end of the school year, was getting people back on campus in person and being connected. I think it's easy to multitask when you're joining virtually. Counseling support. So we talked about the Cal Hope grant. Continuing to provide increased interventions. We're going to continue to provide even outside of the school day interventions for those students that maybe are bubble kids, tier 2 students, maybe that don't fit in the school day. We talked about continuing to provide enrichment opportunities, so after school enrichments like our destination imagination, and opportunities for our students to really excel outside of the school day as well. Bringing back that larger focus on intercultural learning and understanding as a school through our Friday families was an area that was brought up to our attention. And then just that professional development, we'll see here in a minute the amount that we committed to professional development this school year. So goal number 1, we have 4 goals. Our goal number 1 was to increase the relevance and rigor and consistency of the curriculum and instruction. The Common Core state standards, and that includes our school librarian, Angie Gray, our reading specialist, Carrie Tucci, and our interventions and enrichments. So this is a big goal with a lot of action steps in it, and you can see the goals that are the data that we're trying to affect positively with those positions, including those EL students making growth, demonstrating growth on the LPAC, increasing the gains for students who are receiving interventions, chronically absent students, as well as those CAP score results are part of the data that go along with that goal. Goal number 2 is to close that identified achievement gap by providing targeted additional supports. And this is our full-time counselor, and she was more than a full-time counselor this year. She taught every single class at least once a week, pushed in and taught those Inner Explorer lessons. We had the support with the grant. We were able to bring back Mrs. Reichman, Myra Reichman, who was our counselor prior, who was retired, to work with small groups. We're actually meeting tomorrow all day to bring together our SEL with Cal Hope and our PBIS team. And so it continues throughout the summer. But really looking at that chronically absent piece, the SEL piece, academics always go along with SEL. Goal number 3 was creating that positive school environment. And it really was about bringing families back to our campus and getting our school family involved in our community. And so you see here, we had over 1,000 hours of time committed. And then professional development, here's where we have the amount spent this year, over $17,000 on individual, grade level, and whole staff professional development. I got a little bit ahead of myself. Over 1,000 hours of family involvement hours. So not only is this families going out and participating within our community, but then completing the survey so that we can recognize the families at the end of year promotion ceremonies. Any questions? Questions by any board members?
No. Okay, just a comment, Joe. I mean, you and Mr. Gregory do a real job of keeping us updated through the advisory committee reports. And so a lot of this information is reinforced in your presentation tonight. And it really does, I think, make it easier for the board to kind of follow along and be appreciative of what it is you're doing, because you do keep us in the loop. Quite frankly, people, because you're required to give an advisory committee report. So I guess you don't have a choice, but we really do appreciate it. And thank you again, Mr. Gregory, for keeping us in the loop. Thanks, Joe. Okay, so I believe we have to have a hearing regarding this. So I will open up the hearing at 6:19 and wait patiently and close the hearing at 6:20. Okay, now we're going on to public comment. Any public comment? Okay, and we'll move on to our advisory committee report. Mr. Gregory.
All right, good evening. I think Joe, Mr. Meade said most of it. Our last 2 meetings were pretty short because it was reviewing kind of LCAP again. Looking at 2 meetings ago, budget shortfalls of what we were trying to look at, and then with some changes to unduplicated students that we had, allowing us to now not have those shortfalls. And that was the most recent meeting, along with promotions, award ceremonies, those type of things. So that was basically a good portion of it. On a personal separate note, thank you guys for always having me here. This will be my last meeting since my daughter is moving to the high school. So in 2020, I was bawling cold that they needed someone who could speak at the meetings, and I took it on because we started originally, meeting at site, and then obviously the pandemic changed a lot. So you guys saw me on Zoom, saw me here, so I appreciate it. And I think what the staff, Mr. Meade, his group are doing is pretty amazing, and I really enjoyed what the amount they allow the parents to come and actually comment about what's occurring. It's refreshing. So thank you.
Well, Kevin, we've already always appreciated your reports and your knowledge. You just do a really good job of it, representing the parents at CECA. So thank you for that. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. 5.01 is approval of consent calendar items. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent calendar?
Move approval.
I have a motion by Board Member Bannister. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Debbie Miller. All those in favor say aye. Aye. I vote aye. Passes unanimously. Now we'll go on to additional administrative information. Anything, Ms. Bates? Okay. Any of you? Did I skip something?
No, I was just checking on consent for human resources. We got it.
Okay.
I wanted to thank Mr. Meade. He did a fabulous job at all of his awards and promotions, and not everybody gets to be everywhere. And that last week is a push. Board members are zooming all across to get to things, and so are cabinet members. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we recognized was that in all of those, Joe was able off the top of his head to talk about every student. And it was just a pleasure to hear all of the things that he said about the students, and that the 8th grade promotion where Mr. Gregory was in attendance that's a little dry, not dry eyes in the house there. There was also a great tribute that was given to a student who's battling cancer, and Joe did an amazing job with that. So I wanted to make sure that we recognize that. And then also, Mr. Gregory came on and has been really a helpful part of the school district for a very long time. So I wanted to remind him that the community cabinet could definitely use a leader at the high school.
You're not
So
escaping.
putting in a little word for Mr. Jervis, so pass the great things along. So thank you so much.
I assume that his child is not a candidate for retention to stay. That would be my guess. All right, we've heard everything, Kevin. Thank you. Okay, board member comments. Board member Bob Miller, any comments?
No, it's been wonderful this year, getting to know Joe and his staff up there, the great things they do, and the community involvement's wonderful. So great collaboration. You can see it. They're smiling and they're positive all the time. Positivity works, right? And love to see it. Thank you.
Debbie Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory, always for the great reports. I will miss them. But good luck to your daughter next year in the high school. An amazing ride. Enjoy every minute. And have a good summer, both of you, and thanks for the report.
Board member Bannister.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gregory. Thank you very much. I hope your successor knows the hard bar that you set and you're available for coaching. Since you always give a great report. And Joe, it's just so wonderful to be so proud of this school. It's wonderful.
Board member Coe.
Yes, I'm sure they can find something for you to do.
Do you want to say something, Joe?
I just wanted to say I've been ignoring, Kevin's been telling me a while that this is gonna be my last. I've been ignoring, and now it's public. So the Gregory's do this great thing. Whenever they give gifts, it's always, they've made a donation in your name somewhere. So that was so cool. So for everything they've done, we're gonna put together at the end of each promotion ceremony, we're gonna recognize the student or the family who's demonstrated huge acts of service. We're gonna have a plaque up in the office, and we want to make sure that the Gregory's knew that was gonna go on in their name, and make sure that you guys. So, thank you.
All right, very good. That's it. We are then adjourned. We're going to call to order the June 13th, 2023 regular Board of Education meeting for the Yucaipa Mesa Joint Unified School District. And if you would please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will note that all board members are present this evening for tonight's meeting. And 3.04 is approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by board member Bob Miller and a second by board member Kathy Coate. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. It passes unanimously. We do have a couple of items to report out from closed session, and I'm going to do that right now. In closed session, the Board of Education took action on a motion by Debbie Miller, board member Debbie Miller, and a second by board member Sharon Bannister, followed by a 5-0 vote to appoint Margaret Peggy Castro to the position of Dean of Students for Chapman Heights Elementary School. Ms. Castro, I think you're here. Welcome.
Nice to see you again. Thank you, President Snelling. Thank you, board members. Thank you, cabinet, superintendent. I appreciate the honor and the privilege of serving as dean for Chapman Heights Elementary, and I can't wait to get started.
Okay, do you have somebody here with you?
I have my husband.
Well, why don't you introduce him?
Mr. Chance Castro.
All right. There he is. Hey, welcome. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much.
Okay. In closed session, the Board of Education also took action on a motion made by board member Kathy Coate and a second by board member Debbie Miller, followed by a 5-0 vote to appoint Carl Henderson to the position of assistant principal for Yucaipa High School.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate everyone. It's an honor to be here. And I have my family, my wife, Fiona.
Hello, welcome.
Sorry. Imani and Carl II. And we're here enthusiastic and excited about this opportunity. So thank you.
All right, you're officially a T-bird, you know that.
I understand.
All right. Okay, now we're going to move on to public comments. This is where we invite citizens up to speak, and reminder that you have 5 minutes for an item on the agenda and 3 minutes for an item not on the agenda. So please plan your thoughts so we can get through this. And first, I'll call up Carol Haskins. Welcome, Ms. Haskins. Hello.
Hello, good evening, board. My name is
Can you
Carol.
want to pull the microphone down? There you go. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Carol Haskins, and I want to talk about the status of the school resource officer. I haven't been hired yet, but I understand that it was approved 6 months ago to bring in a school resource officer. The scuttlebutt that I hear around town is the city of Yucaipa and the school district are at odds about who is going to fund this position. In a district with approximately 10,000 students, with around 3,000 at the high school alone, our disagreements about funding really work the needs of our students, not having their needs met. Please don't let us be the district that acts only after the crisis has occurred. We can do better than that for all of our students' sake. To give a response to my inquiry.
Thank you, Ms. Haskins. Stacy Tucker, welcome. Welcome, Ms. Tucker.
Hello, thank you for letting me address the
Uh-huh.
board. My name is Stacy Tucker. I'm a parent with children in the district, as well as I do, also I'm a member of the Civil Review Board. And my comment today is regarding the Stop It app. It has been a great addition to school year, an additional resource for students and for the school. But after speaking to my own student, I've learned that many students do not believe that the app is anonymous. So I believe that they believe that their reports can be tracked via their phones, especially because it's a phone app, so you need to download it onto your personal phone. So I'm just concerned with that hesitancy that the students might have. I'm concerned that this could be a barrier preventing the students from reporting on important issues. So with those concerns, I feel the district will need to work on reassuring and educating students that the app, if it is completely anonymous, to reassure them that it is. I also noticed that within the Stop It app that there is a hotline listed. And so if that is an active hotline for students to use, that could be something that is shared with them and educate the students that maybe that's also another avenue to use the Stop It app. And then also a question is, can we offer alternatives to ensure the students are comfortable with reporting events or asking for help, utilizing possibly the WeTip hotline as an alternative, educating students on that's something that they could use. And the WeTip is also an anonymous crime reporting system via the Sheriff's Department, from my understanding, and also utilizes phone lines, text messages, and web forms. And that brings me to another question, which is, with the Stop It app, is there a third party involved with reports that are received? For example, the school resource officer. I think that knowing that will assure parents and students as well that all issues received are being addressed thoroughly. So I would like to see the district addressing this concern with hesitancy within the students and figuring out how to remedy this for the next upcoming school year.
Thank you very much. Catherine Elliott. Hello, Ms. Elliott.
So normally I would come and talk to you about science things, but not tonight. I wanted to take the opportunity to say some wonderful things about special education at Ukiah High School. It is a topic of conversation, as I understand, that we are looking at class sizes and such. And so I just wanted to kind of lend a voice to the amazing things that happen in special education classrooms. Many years ago, I went to visit my now retired colleague, Hope Gutierrez's classroom. And while my classroom is often permeated with smoke and funny smells, Hope's classroom was permeated with love. And Hope and other special education teachers craft family with their students. And, you know, I think that all students need their teachers, but some students need them even more. And in that family atmosphere, having small class sizes, I think really helps the effectiveness of what the teachers are doing with their students. And, you know, even though it's not my area of expertise and I don't know the magic that happens there, I just wanted to kind of have a voice to just tell you that they do amazing things and they're appreciated even by the general education teachers. So that's it.
Thank you, Catherine. I really appreciate that. Okay, Mike Mobley. Welcome, Mr. Mobley.
Thank you. Catherine is not the expert, I am. And so this is a piggyback. Anyway, 25 years I've never come and spoken before the board, so this is kind of meaningful to me, and I just want to say about it. So my name is Mike Mobley. I teach special education at the high school in the mild to moderate setting. And I wanted to let you know how amazing my kids are, and that in our care they are loved. We prepare the best way we can. It's important that our classes are small because they not only require more of my attention, but they thrive on it.
Yeah.
So, but we're all together in this, and we're gonna get through it. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mobley. And now we have Travis Burton. Mr. Burton, welcome.
Can everybody hear me? Thank you all for showing up tonight. Appreciate that. I'm here to talk about school safety. A few of you up there on the board and we've had some personal conversations about school safety. And that's been regarded around the external threats of what we've talked about, keeping kids safe from outside of the school. But unfortunately, we've overlooked or never talked about the internal threats from within the district. Someone once told me, if it's predictable, it's preventable. We are all aware of the most recent predator who has struck from the inside. I would like to have a follow-up meeting to discuss the policies and procedures and what the district has implemented so this never happens again. I believe this is twice now, right? So it's definitely predictable. I'm also extending an invitation to any who wants to come to a town hall so you can talk to the community, unlike we can here, and let them know what you've done and the policies and procedures that you've implemented. This would be set up by the Civil Review Board, of course. So if I can get a response based on the policies and procedures and what's been implemented since the incident, and I would love to have a sit-down meeting instead of a phone call. I would prefer that. And then I would also, like I said, extend an invitation to a town hall for any one of you that can come up and tell us about all the safety measures that the district has implemented. Not from an external standpoint, because we've had those discussions. That discussion needs to be surrounded by the internal threats that have recently happened at the high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Okay, now we're going to move on to our action session, and we'll begin with 5.01, which is the delegation of authority to hire. Do I have a motion for approval of this item? I have a motion by Board Member Coe. Do I have a second? And a second by Board Member Deputy Miller. Any questions? If I understand this correctly, it's a matter of timing, being able to hire people in a timely manner during the summer, get them on board before the
Yes, we
school
have a lot
year.
of trainings, President Sellings, that
Yeah,
occur at
okay.
the beginning. We want to make sure that they get to partake of that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, passes unanimously. 5.02 through 5.05 are the agreements for our superintendent and her cabinet related to the raise that was given to our bargaining units. Is anybody opposed to taking all four of these together? If so, we okay with that?
I'm good.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve 5.02, 03, 04, and 05?
Move approval.
I have a motion by Board Member Bannister and a second by Board Member Coe. All those in favor say aye,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Motion carries 5-0. Now we're moving on to 5.06. This is a public hearing for the LCAP, and I believe prior to that, we're going to have a presentation by Dr. Andrews. Hi, Jamie.
Thank you, President Millings, board members, Superintendent Binks. I appreciate your time in presenting the 2023-24 Local Control and Accountability Plan. Just as a reminder, this is the third year of this 3-year plan. So next year we will begin a whole new plan with goal development and actions as well. So with this, there are certain requirements that are included in the Local Control and Accountability Plan, all 111 pages. And part of that is the budget overview for parents, along with the supplement annual update, that was included last year. Part of that requirement that was met this year was in the mid-year report when we did our dashboard data. And then also we have action tables at the end that measures every single goal, every single action, and those metrics included within that for the last 2 years. So part of the process is throughout the year, we begin in fall, and really with the development of the timeline, we really talked about our surveys this last year because we felt during COVID, while everybody made a tremendous Herculean effort, and we thought that we did a pretty good job getting some feedback. Historically, we've always had a really hard time with surveys and getting feedback with our communities. When we have in-person meetings, we do have our regular attendees, but we thought we're going to implement thought exchange again. Because our first launch of this, we didn't get very good feedback, and I have to give all of the credit to Dr. Brown, who is not here tonight, but she did a fantastic job of implementing thought exchange, where we had over 700 responses from our parents and community and our staff, and then 921 responses from secondary students, which was amazing. And including those responses were actually feedback given back in the form of short response. So we really got a lot of feedback this year for us to work on, and all feedback for our teams and schools. So I really appreciate her efforts on that. And also from our educational partners. I feel like this year our educational services and student services team really took into account how important it is to get the feedback from our parents, not just in a survey or in an in-person meeting, but in also building relationships. And I really want to give credit to also Mrs. Burkhardt, who also started Dine with the Director meetings, and also did a lot of not only building relationships, but repairing relationships. So her and her staff did a fantastic job with that. And also part of the plan development is not only getting the feedback, but it's also making sure that we follow district and board goals when we are developing that, because that is the main goal of ours, as well as to make sure that we're following our district and board goals. Part of that plan development too is looking at the metrics and the growth, and also maybe declines that we've had, and making sure that the actions we have in place are appropriate. And then finally is the accumulation in June of the public hearing tonight, and then next week's final adoption. Part of the budget overview does talk about the different funding that we have for LCFF and or local funding formula. There's a lot of acronyms in here, and the last slide in the presentation, it does have a little acronym cheat sheet for everybody. So I'll try to spell everything out too to make it a little bit easier. With the local control funding formula, what that also includes is the property tax, the state aid, and then also the education protection account, which is the Proposition 30 funds. With the federal funds, those are more restricted funds. So that's our Title I, Title II, III, and IV funds. The Title I goes along with supporting our low income students and giving them the extra support that they need to achieve academic standards. The Title II is professional development for our teachers and administrators, and then Title III can be used for our English learners and immigrants. In recognizing that last year during the 2022 year, our English learners made up 8% of our student population. And then also with Title IV, that's called Student Support in Academic Enrichment, and that talks about a well-rounded education incorporating technology as well. And then you also have our other state funding, which is our mandated cost reimbursement, our state lottery, and also block grants, and then local funds, which would be use of facilities and then interest revenues. I know Dr. Bream is going to go into more detail with the budget presentation, but I like to impress him with my budget talk. And looking at our LCAP, we did look at successes that we had this last year. During the 21-22 school year, our district was awarded the Pivotal Practice District Award for our child nutrition services, and the amazing job that that team did with making sure that our parents and families had meals in the community. And then also our Signs of Suicide presentation that Dr. Tyson Lingenfelter helped lead during that time in distance learning. Really, we make sure that our middle school and high school students have that special training and workshop. But during that year, we made sure that all secondary students received that because it was such an important time. So we were awarded that during that year. And then also we had numerous schools that were awarded for positive behavior intervention supports at the gold, the platinum, the gold, and the silver levels that year. And then also another success is our continuing partnership with Crafton Hills College with our dual enrollment agreements. We not only updated our board policies this year, but we are expanding in a very strategic way that makes sense for our district and our teaching staff, and also expanding opportunities for students to get those dual enrollment credits. We're excited next year also to offer kinesiology, and one of our own Ukiah High School teachers will be teaching that class. And then also we are continuing the American Sign Language course that Crafton Hills was able to help with. Also, we increased our reclassified students percentage, and then also as well, it's exciting because we increased our A to G rate. And then also with our career technical education, we increased our capstone completion to 77% during this time. And then we were able to increase our graduation rate and also our proficiency with our students on the English Language Proficiency Assessment of California, which is our second language learners achieving the English proficiency. The next piece on the identified need that we recognized in looking at our metrics was the decrease in our California assessment scores. Now, part of this, I do want to point out that these are scores from the 2021 school year. During that time, school districts were offered the option for students to take the state assessments and or a local assessment. Because some of our high school students needed their scores if they were going to go to a California State University, we decided to give our 11th graders the test. So really those scores are only our grade 11 students from Ukiah High School from that year. So I do want to reiterate that. We did have a significant increase in chronic absenteeism too, which increased to over 31%. Almost all of our student groups increased to the very high level during that year. Also, we decreased in our school attendance. And just as a reminder, with our local control funding formula, we are funded on school attendance, not school enrollment. So we get paid when students come to school, which is really important for us. I know, Dr. Beer, I'm making you proud right now. Also, we had an increase in suspension rates as well, which increased to 4%. So these pieces, when we identified need, really was our goals that we set this year, and our principals did a fantastic job in developing goals with their school plans as well to make sure we aligned. In looking at engaging educational partners, like I said before, we are very strategic in engaging in various ways to make sure that we wanted our parents and community and also our staff from our classified certificated positions to feel heard. And they are a part of our decision making. We meet with teachers and classified staff all throughout the school year in different capacities with our counselors as well. And we want to monitor not only progress, but also hear feedback and how we need to adapt throughout the year. We also meet with our special education local plan administrator that helps out with our special education students and support also with our staff in our area, along with other school districts. So they're very helpful in the alternative dispute resolution trainings, but also trainings for our classified and certificated staff in instructional strategies as well, and also student behaviors. Part of the outcomes from what we saw with the major themes of what our groups really talked with us about, first is intervention, especially in math. So our team this year really worked closely, Mrs. Burkhart in special education, and then Mrs. Jackson, and also Mr. Kirkland within our educational services divisions to really come together to make sure that we're inclusive, including our special education students in our general education decisions and making clear tiered intervention structures. So that was a lot of our work that we did this year. As well, we're also looking at a response to intervention structures, K-12. We really focused on elementary this year, and we'll be taking that work into secondary levels next year. A big piece too that we heard from our parents was really trying to look at training also and helping them. So one big piece, because we were not able to fill our bilingual specialist position, is we implemented the Parent Institute for Quality Education. And this year we had about 81 students enrolled total at Parkview Middle School and then also Valley Elementary School. And then we had about 50 graduates. And those are Spanish speaking and also English speaking classes that were offered. So we're pretty proud to have that. Even though I am hopeful we are filling that bilingual engagement specialist position next year. And another big piece from the student voice that we heard also was in explaining, first they always mention cafeteria food. That's very important to them. And I know that Ms. Van Dam would not be happy to hear anything negative because she works really hard with Mr. Burgess. But our high school students mentioned food, but they also mentioned too the amount of homework. They mentioned that they really loved the visual performing arts course offerings that they were very happy with. They liked our career technical education courses. A big piece for them was really if maybe teachers could work in workshops and trainings and to better understand the student's perspective a little bit more. So that's one piece that we're taking to heart because we think our student voice is very important. And especially with our parent groups too, along with our other groups mentioned cultural competency and empathy training for all levels and positions. So that's something that we're going to bring to our teams to get feedback in that training as well. Thank you, Lance, too, for doing this. In looking at goal one surrounds the relevance and rigor and the consistency of achieving academic standards. For this piece, we really wanted to highlight that our teams completed a transitional kindergarten curriculum pilot and then also implementation of that curriculum. And then we also finished our last year of working with West Ed with our K-12 lead teachers for our next generation science standards, because a part of that professional development is they come in, create the structures, and then that last year they phase out, and then our team creates the lead structures within, and then we carry on that work. Also, a big piece is we implemented K-12 math and English common formative assessments, and also within that the structure for data protocols and collaboration time for teachers to do data analysis. Part of that piece is really to keep that increase in ABG completion, but our main focus too is to increase our academic achievement with our students, especially with math and English. Goal 2 focuses on closing that achievement gap with targeted additional support for our student groups. A big piece of this would be the math intervention work at elementary and secondary this year to really work on this goal. A big piece was setting up the tier 1 and tier 2 interventions with elementary, and then we will be continuing that work with secondary next year. One piece that we did do that was sent out on Parent Square today is we have the intervention support of IXL. So it is pretty amazing that we received our state data from our students testing late this last year, where we know that every student score is already within Aries right now. And parents were sent a message that they can access that data. And then we also offered open access to all students during the summer to our IXL English and math programs to where they can take a diagnostic online, and then they're given lessons online to help them throughout the summer to help fill those gaps. So that's in addition to our Jumpstart summer school program. So we're really excited about the alignment that's happening. Another big piece is we revised our English learner master plan this year. Dr. Brown again was incremental in that work and working with our English learner district advisory group and also our parents, teachers, and also our tutors. Also, we restructured how our English learner tutors are, I'll say, employed at sites. We're really strategic now in looking at the number of English learner students and then their itinerant. So every year that population changes at the site, we make sure to put the tutors exactly where they need to be depending on the population. And also we have additional credit recovery courses that have been made available to our students as well, especially to regain high school credits. Goals 3 and 4 are pretty similar because they do circle around career technical education, which again, several of our groups, when we talked about feedback, they really wanted to focus on that, and they wanted to continue our STEAM classes at elementary school as well. And the exploratory piece at middle schools that our Colton, Redlands, Ukipa Regional Occupational Program is able to offer as well. Part of that piece is we revised our board policies this year to make sure that we updated work-based learning and also dual enrollment policies, as well as looking at how we're preparing students for life after graduation, because we want to make sure those pathways are clear and accessible for our students. With goal 4, we're looking at just increasing the number of students participating in career technical education pathways, because I think a big message for us is sometimes students do find their passion in high school and we think that's amazing. Other pieces, we're okay with students figuring out, I don't want to do that either in life. And they figure that out in high school because then there is no financial burden to them. But no matter what, if they're involved with a career technical education pathway, they're learning life skills that's relevant to them. So that's the important part for us. With this piece in one of our metrics, the dashboard data for the college career readiness indicator was not given on the California dashboard this year, but we do believe it will be on this next year's. For goal 5, this was big for us in fostering positive school environments. That was one big theme too in feedback from all of our different groups, is creating caring environments on our campuses in one way or another. Because we know the research that when students connect with one caring adult, their academic achievement will increase significantly. So part of that was our continued focus on student wellness and behaviors. So all of the actions in goal 5 circle around support for students. It has all of our counselors in it, as well as our Where Everybody Belongs program at the middle schools and our link crew at the high school that welcomes in our 9th graders. Part of that too, in that work, we're really trying to focus on that decrease in school attendance, because we understand it's not just about coming to school, but it's connecting with school and connecting with people, but also the learning for students to make it meaningful for them. So I just really want to reiterate that. Our last goal with goal 6 is our parent engagement. As mentioned previously, we weren't able to fill that bilingual engagement specialist position. So I know that that's why we didn't have a significant number of workshops available. Our goal next year, though, is to go out to sites individually, in addition to also our Family Learning Center, to provide workshops for parents, because we understand that each school has different needs. But we did get amazing feedback from our parents and the Parent Institute. At the graduation ceremonies, parents were so grateful because now they know how to help their students. So that was something that we took away from that. Any questions?
Any questions from board members? Board member Bob Miller?
Thank you, Dr. Hanson. Explain what a common formative assessment is for our audience and why they're so important.
Mr. Miller? Really, common formative assessments is a way to check on learning within the moment. So a state test is more about the end result. You test it at the end, you know that, great, but you can't really do anything to change the student's trajectory during that moment. So a common formative assessment allows teachers to know where students are at that moment and adapt their teaching in order to address that need.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I have a question about IXL. I don't know what that is.
That's okay. It is one of the programs that our board graciously approved to have as a support in English and in math for our students. This past year, we just had it at the secondary level for math. And I know Mrs. Pearson, who is very aggressive in finding interventions, I know did a pilot this year, and she put up a very good argument to have it for English as well, because it aligns so well with our STAR, but also our materials that we're currently using. So what it does is students can take a quick diagnostic test, and IXL online will give them different practice lessons in order to fill that specific standard or gap that they have in their learning.
Okay, so is that something that a teacher assigns?
A teacher does not, they can assign it. The very nice part with our district is if Mrs. Bannister is a teacher, I'll say you're at Mesa View, it automatically loads the roster into our Clever system. So students just have to click into their Clever, and then the teacher, they can automatically take a test within there. So this summer, all of our students are accessible to it at the secondary level, and they don't have to be rostered to a teacher necessarily though.
Okay, so they can just take care of their own where they feel a weakness.
Correct, and it's individualized for every student.
Okay, great. That's awesome. That's what I thought, but that's great. I like the clarification.
Okay, Jamie, I just want to thank you for the presentation. You took 111 pages of an LCAP and put it into 15 pages for us, and I really appreciate that. The other thing I noticed is that a lot of the goals in the LCAP really align with the work that the board did in January on the consensus workshop, meeting the academic needs of all students, building a positive school community, continuing meaningful parent engagement, and excellent facilities. I know that Dr. Freeman's going to talk about the facilities. but you hit each of those marks in your presentation tonight. And I know that we have a lot of work to do still post-COVID, but thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Snellings.
Okay, this is a hearing tonight, and for the public, we will be meeting next Tuesday on the 20th as part of the process for having a hearing on the budget, getting a budget presentation, hearing about the LCAP, then getting the presentation, then also having a hearing, then we'll approve them, presumably, if the board so desires, next week. So we will open the hearing for the 2023-2024 LCAP at 7:06. And is there anybody who would like to comment on the presentation or the LCAP? Okay, not wanting to wait an entire minute, I'll just pretend that we did and make it adjourned to 7:07. Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to the public hearing along with the presentation for the 2023-2024 proposed budget, and Dr. Freeman is at the podium.
Thank you, President Snellings, members of the board, Mrs. Banks. Thanks for having me here this evening to talk a little bit about the budget. Dr. Anderson did a great job of condensing a 100-page plus document to 12 slides or so. I'll try to compress our 144-page budget document into 10 or so slides. So I'll see if I can match her energy. Maybe might not be as exciting.
It's not a race.
Yeah, we've been in competition for years. So thank you. This evening, we are at the start of the budget cycle for the following year. I've come to you many times this year, December and in March, to talk about the current year budget. So here we're here to talk about next year's budget as well as the following 2 years. So you can see here, we're at the hearing June 13th, and just as the LCAP will come for adoption on June 20th, the budget will also. You can see that our budget has to be adopted before the state budget. That's always an interesting part. So we're going off the best information we have. If the state budget is approved, it will be approved after our budget. If there's significant increases in revenue or in expenditures on our side, we would bring you a 45-day budget on July 18th. If not, then we would not have that July 18th date. So we'll see where we end up. So this is just a preview of our budget for next year and includes also the following years. So this is a 3-year budget cycle that we present every time of this year. So before we move to the next slide, I just want to share that this is a little different than where we were last year. Last year, we had a COLA around 6.5%, as well as additional funding. Our new money coming to the district was around 13%. That's not the same. And we have other conditions in play now that are different than we were last year. So I don't mean to be doom and gloom, but it's a little bit different than we were at this time last year. So in the May revise, the governor proposes the budget, the 23-24 budget in January. The state works through with some legislatures, and they talk about the budget. And then in May, they come out with the May revise. And at the May revise, there was some concerns. California, the funding system for the state in general, and in schools, in most states, most of the funding comes from property taxes. In Ukiah-Calamasa, only 17% of our money comes from property taxes. The rest of the money comes from the big 3 taxes that the state receives. So that's income tax, that's corporate tax, and that's sales tax. And as you can imagine, as the economy goes up and down, those taxes are more volatile than property tax and home ownership. So that first line is about the volatile nature of the tax system in California. And that was a result of Prop 13 many years ago, limiting the property tax for homeowners. Also, there was been decline in the stock market, 20% decline in the stock market, which affects our high income folks in the state. 50% of our tax revenue comes from the highest earners in California. Also, there's a budget deficit at the state level. In January, it was estimated at $22.5 billion, and it's ballooned to $31.5 billion. That was in May. And then there's revenue estimates. So the state has estimated how much revenue they're going to receive in 23-24. But one of the issues is they're not exactly sure because the tax deadline in many counties has been moved to October 15th due to some of the natural disasters and the impact weather, locally that we had also. So there's not a real good estimate on what our income tax will look like. And then at the federal level, everything exists there except for the debt ceiling deal is done, I believe. But there's also some things there. So these are the volatile factors at the state level that can affect the final budget that we see after our budget's approved. So every year, when we do a 3-year budget, we have some assumptions. And the major assumption is our average daily attendance. And as Dr. Anderson alluded to, and you saw in some of those metrics, our daily attendance is down. And it's down across the state. So we're estimating 193 loss in ADA next year. So that means average daily attendance. Doesn't mean enrollment. That means students, less students coming to school every day. That's one of the major factors of the budget. The second factor is the cost of living adjustment. It's predicted for next year to be 8.22. And you might wonder in that huge budget crisis the state is having, how can they afford to fund the full COLA? And I'll explain kind of some of the shifting they're doing to impact that. Also, we have increased expenditures. Everyone knows about inflation and all those things. I'll share a little bit about that. That's also something we have to put in the budget. And then we have our retirement rates for retirement system, CalSTRS for the teachers, certificated staff, and CalPERS. CalPERS is going up every year. So 26 cents on the dollar now has to be added towards the state retirement system for classified employees. And for certificated employees, it's staying at 19.10.
Dr. Friedman, I want to just be reminded about what an ADA is worth. Is it about $10,000?
It averages around $13,000 in our district now.
Oh, okay. So it's over. So that's over about 2.5 million. I mean, around about $2.5 million less that we would take if our ADA continued that way.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also for clarification, in past years, we've expected a decrease. We've experienced a decrease of about 100.
Yeah, we've received a decrease of it. And so enrollment decrease matched ADA decrease. What's happening now is, and I have a slide on this, decrease in enrollment, decrease in ADA is outpacing the decrease in enrollment. So we're having a decrease in enrollment, but the decrease in ADA is a much sharper decline.
Okay.
I'll have a slide on that in a second. Great question. And please stop me if there's any other questions moving forward. Next slide. So I just wanted to show you at the state level, it is in Justin Calamasa, but these are projections from 22-23 to 2031 to 2032, and you can see across county levels in different counties where the state is declining. So this is just not a UCAIPA issue. This is across our state, and it is unique to every district, obviously. So we do have, Redlands, for example, is in declining enrollment. Beaumont's not. So we see it across the state, but Beaumont's one of the only districts in California that we're seeing an increase in enrollment. But as you mentioned, enrollment. Let's talk about ADA. So the next slide. So just like us, we usually could count on 95% of our students being in school every day. That's been a standard in our district for many, many years. When I was in educational services and we wrote the LCAP, it was around 95%. But our numbers are very similar to these numbers that we see across the state. So in 1819 across the state, there's first apportionment and second apportionment. That just means time of year. But in 1819, you can see average 96.25 and then 95.14. That was the average for that year. And then 2021, in 1920, we froze ADA. We went back to February because we left school in March. So they let us freeze ADA in February. So we maxed this also. We were at 95%. 2021, they let us keep that 95% because we were on virtual learning. So there wasn't a metric there. But you can see when we came back into in-person learning last year, or previous year, statewide, the ADA went down to 91.25 and 90.49. And 22-23, 91.92, and we're around 90% right now. So on average, we have 5% less students come to school every day. And that's not just UCAIPA, but that's across the state. Next slide, please.
Do we know why that is?
So there's lots of ideas. Students got got out of the habit of coming to school every day through the pandemic. We've also introduced, teachers have done a great job of introducing online modules, and students, when they leave, can get caught up with Google Classroom and those types of things. So we really have worked with a committee to put together some really purposeful and thoughtful things, reminding everyone how important it is to get to school every day. So we're going to address it head on as we go into the beginning of the school year.
Okay.
This slide, hard to read, I apologize, but the top line is enrollment, excuse me. And the bottom line is funded ADA. So you can see on that last slide in 23-24, though we'll have 7734 in enrollment, that's estimated enrollment, and this is non-CECA. Our ADA will be paid on 7475. So we'll only receive funding for that many students. And you can see what happened also is we were funded on a 3-year average. So if we back up to those COVID years and we use those 95%, 95% the frozen year, and those now that 95% is falling out of our 3-year average. So now our 3-year average is going to be around 90%. And so not only are we declining in students, but we're declining in ADA, not because of 3-year averages coming off the COVID years. And you can see in 25-26, though our prediction is 7,500 students, will be funded for only 7,000 students.
Okay, so that means if we get better attendance next year, we're still going to continue to be hurt by those recent years where it's been low, because it would be a 3-year average. Does that continue the 3-year average?
No, so they give us, it can either be the higher of the 3-year average, your increased ADA for last year, or your increased ADA for this school year. So if we increase our ADA above the 3-year average, we'll be funded on that increased ADA.
Okay, so that's a nice incentive to have, because I don't want the burden of those bad years. Okay,
right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The state lets us do the higher of those 3 measures.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So when we talk about the unrestricted general fund, you can see that in 22-23, we received $95 million. With the COLA, for 23-24, we'll receive approximately $103,000 million. So an increase of $7.3 million, which is great. But then you can see some of those additional costs that if you take that 7.3, and then you start adding in the additional cost of payroll, CalPERS, that additional cost that's going up. I mentioned 26 cents on the dollar. We have an increase for special education contribution, increased utilities, increase in insurance premiums, and some service and supplies. And this is not any different than we're all feeling at home in the part of the inflation. But if you take all that increase, what additional funding is available is $1 million. And there's a lot of competing interests around that $1 million, whether it's technology, obviously employee compensation is always a topic. And so you can see with our declining ADA not matching our declining enrollment, we've run into a limited amount of funding that we can use. When you're in declining enrollment and you reduce staff according to declining enrollment, you can usually keep up with the COLA and the decline. But when you see a decline in ADA as we have, and you have to staff on enrollment, it becomes challenging. We also have some expiration of federal funds. As the board knows, we received many additional federal funds during the pandemic, emergency relief. Part of that was elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund. We received ESSER 1, 2, and $3. But these are the positions that live in ESSER 3. And so this funding expires at the end of this coming school year. And so for the 24-25 school year, we've got to make some decisions on what we need to do with these positions. And I just said the challenges here, obviously the funding expires. We may be able to extend some of these positions and hours with additional grant funding. I'll share a little bit about that. But eventually, if the positions we retain would have to come back to the general fund. And if you remember the $1 million extra we had for this coming year, you can imagine it's about the same in the following year. So we've really got to address all the COVID relief that we're able to offer our students and the great work all these folks are doing. We really have to think about the priorities of the district, and obviously LCAP would be part of that conversation. But that's another kind of looming thing we have to look at this year in preparation for the 24-25 school year. Next slide, please. So as all that, I'm going to just do one chart. This is our 3-year. We always do a multi-year projection. You can see the funded ADA is the first line. So that's our ADA at 90% for the next 3 years. You can see the projected COLA. We're at 8.22. We believe that will be fully funded. The next 2 years out, and guarantee those aren't accurate. That's our best, state's best assumption at this point. You can see our beginning fund balance. You can see our revenue, and you can see our expenditures, and then you can see our revenue minus expenditures on those middle lines. As a district of our size, we're required to carry a 3% reserve. So we are able to carry that 3% reserve for the next 3 years. We had some board committed funds. The board's committed for the past several years. And then I have something called assigned decline ADA contingency. So that's the money that we have extra right now that we have as a contingency for our ADA loss. So really what they're looking at for to approve our budget is that assigned decline ADA contingency, that 3.246 million, that's got to be above zero. So this means that 3 years out, with our best estimates, our best assumptions, that we're able to pay all of our bills, offer the services, and we'll have a positively certified budget based on the fact that we have that it's above zero on that 3rd year. And then you can see the projected balance, and so we do meet the minimum reserve, and we would have a positively certified budget. Also want to share where we were. I've done this at the first and second interim, where we're on some of our federal stimulus. This is what I want to talk about a little bit. Extended learning program. That's an ongoing program. We partner with the STARS from the city of Yucaipa to offer after-school care. ESSER 3, we have a balance there. This is, if you think about that 2.6 million that we are spending this year in those positions, and about $3 million for the HVAC project at Yucaipa High School, you can see we're well on our way to spending this down. Educator effectiveness, the professional development, A through G grant. And then, so I mentioned that the state has a budget issue, and they have billions of dollars in the revenue they're not going to receive. So the governor's proposal was to take the arts, music, and instructional materials block grant and take back half from school districts. So, and then also, I didn't put it on here, but a learning recovery block grant, take back some of that. So the idea from the governor was take some of this one-time block grant money we've given to school districts, not give it to them, and plug the budget so we can get COLA this year. So using one-time money for ongoing expenses, which I would never recommend we do either, but that's the thought. The legislature just did their budget in a combination with both houses, put together a budget presented to the governor. Their cuts to these two programs are very minimal, but their way to get to full COLA is to cut the strong workforce program, which our Colton runs type ROP relies on quite a bit. So that's their proposal, not to touch this grant money we received, but to fully cut strong workforce. And so now it's negotiations between the governor and the legislature on where that lands. But both the House, the governor, and the legislature intend to fully fund COLA. They're trying to figure out a way to be able to do that.
Did we, refresh my memory, did we recently pass a proposition that added funding for art and for the arts?
We did. Proposition 28 was passed by the voters in California. That was additional funding for arts and programs. Right now, the state, the California Department of Education is writing the rules around that. And so we have an estimate of what we'll receive, but we don't know what the spending categories we can and can't spend that on specifically. So we should get that soon, but we do have money coming around.
Okay, do we have any sense that the thinking was we'll cut it from the budget because we know we're going to get this extra money and they'll make it so it plugs that hole?
Yeah, the governor, that was his thought, I believe. The issue is there's some school districts, small school districts, for example, maybe you have 300 ADA and you receive very little money. you've spent it all. So then how do you give back money you've already spent? Where we haven't spent our funding, but there are school districts across California who've already spent that money. So how would you be able to give that back? That's what they're negotiating at this point. But they want to fully fund the COLA. They're just trying to find a way to do that.
Okay, but with all these budgets at this early stage, this is kind of
Yeah,
nebulous.
so I've heard the term placeholder budget.
Mhm.
Districts go approve your placeholder budget, do your and then we'll pass our budget, and in 45 days you can report what the real revenue is.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide, please. So facility funding, I just want to mention this. We do have 3 community facilities districts, CFDs. The first one was a voter approved initiative in 1989. When there's building in a construction in our city, we receive development fees. We also have CFD 2 and 3. These are community facility districts for certain projects around the district. So we do, and we have deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance is money that the board has put into deferred maintenance throughout the year. So we do have around $12 million of facility funding. And I can, I've shared with the board the project list we have going on this summer. But we did do it in March 2021. We did a full needs assessment, and the needs assessment was $141 million due based on the age of our building. So we can do some things, and we're taking high priority things off the list. But we are definitely underfunded in the area of facilities. Next slide, please. So I just want to report on CECA. CECA is its own funding. It's Fund 09 in the 144-page document. But you can see here beginning fund balance, revenues, expenditures, and ending fund balance. And so CECA, in years past, we've had to commit funds to support CECA. That is not the case. And so CECA is stable, and we do not have to commit funds for CECA. So next slide. So just next week, as Dr. Anderson mentioned, we'll bring forth the budget for approval. California will then approve their budget, and if there's changes, and I expect there will be, I'll come back in July and share those changes for our final budget moving forward.
Wow. Okay. Dr. Bremen, the revenues that are going to come in October because of the changes, wildfires, et cetera, will that be addressed during the May revise? Or, I mean, when can we expect our percentage, if there is a higher revenue, to come to us?
So I don't think it'll be higher revenue. It might be lower. And so what my folks are projecting is a lower revenue. What if the state really can't give us these numbers?
Okay.
They said that right now they've often done deferrals to deal with that. They don't expect mid-year cuts, but what they would expect is they would do a true up for 24-25. So instead of that 3 point whatever COLA, it might be significantly less in the following year.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, a couple, President. Eric, thank you, and bear with me on a couple of these. Obviously, with the tax day change, it could matriculate in at any time, or it could come in the last week. I mean,
Yeah.
And then that's probably over projected anyways, realistically. I think we agree. So can we go back to the learning recovery block grant?
Sure.
Slide.
Yeah.
Now, bear with me on this.
Oh, please.
The wording on it, increase instruction, increase tough time, let's see, closer to gaps. Pupil supports to address barriers to learning. Is there any way that safety is a barrier to learning?
Not in this. They're really following the ESSER guidelines around, it can be social emotional well-being. It could be in that form of safety, but in the form of safety of the work we're doing around cameras and radios, and that wouldn't be seen or approved. It's more about the social economic barriers, kids not getting to school, those kind of barriers.
Okay, and then in reference to ADA, everything is focused around that in the first couple slides, obviously. But we have methods that we can employ to sanction parents for not getting their kids to school. It's too easy to be off Monday and Friday and maybe go a couple of days a week. There's a lot of unintended consequences coming out of COVID. Everybody knows that, right? But we got to get back to some normal see, and I know there are programs that you can hold parents accountable for not getting their kids to school. So I think we need to revisit that at some point. I mentioned it a few minutes ago, and I'm not staring at you over there, you know who I'm looking at. It's something we have to seriously consider because we control some of that. You know, if we positively, proactively address that, maybe some sanctions for parents that are responsible for the children not getting them to school, you may increase that, at least some of it. I know that sounds maybe a little archaic, but I think we've got to get back to pulling ourselves up to the bootstraps, get back to school and start learning again. And I know that sounds a little old fashioned to many people out there, but it's the truth. No more excuses. Let's get back to school. You know, we're in the 9th inning of COVID apparently, so let's just get back. Let's get back, you know, new season, let's get started. And I don't mean just throw analogies out there, but we're always focused, as I'm learning as a new board member, about ADA. Well, we have a way to address that, because if you don't, look what happens. And eventually you're gonna have to make decisions, we know on this board, on staffing levels, because what I understand from our wonderful HR director, and as I'm learning, we're trying to project how many teachers, et cetera, and staff we need based on enrollment over history, correct? Yet we have this component of kids that aren't coming to school consistently because that is driving it down. But our enrollment, we're historically trying to figure out how many we're going to need. So we probably hire towards the beginning of the year, I would assume, right? Is that how we do it? This is a good class for our constituents out there watching.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Miller. So we're hiring season is now.
Okay.
And we're based on the projections from the business services offices. But in theory, it's spread. We start hiring now and then hiring very conservatively. There's a phrase in education, wait for the whites of their eyes. Okay. First days of school. So there will be no.
But people show up, how many we got?
Right. And someone who says they're coming out, they will, something they don't know.
Okay.
So Dr. Freeman's office and my office work very carefully with those numbers to project what our staff is based on what we think enrollment will be.
And that's the hard part, is what we think it'll be, right? And I don't know if the public always understands that when you're trying to figure out staffing versus, and especially if we have people not showing up to school, that just makes it a little bit worse, obviously. So I just wanted to say that, so folks that maybe haven't listened to a lot of meetings or understand it in layman's terms, you know, folks got to get to school and we got to get our enrollment up. I think that's going to happen with some of the things I've seen happen in town. But you don't know what the future is going to hold. In 3 years from now, we know we're budgeting that. We don't know what it's going to look like in 3 years. Could be a leadership change up top. We don't, you know, nationally. So I'll leave my rant alone. I know you can't answer all that, Eric, but I think there are some things we can do sanction-wise to start addressing the absenteeism. I just think it's become too easy, right? Responsible parents, get your kids to school. That may not go well with everybody, but that's not difficult. Okay, thank you.
I will share, Board Member Miller and board that as cabinet is working with our principals and with Dr. Lindenfelter and Mr. Tucci, who lead our school attendance review board, there are citations that are happening with our chronic parents. We try to do wraparound services so that parents have, we try to take away every reason why their kids can't get to school. In some cases, we try to work with Department of Health, we work with our behavioral health counselors, with social workers and so on. We did do some research this past week. I was reached out to someone who is in the sheriff's department, not local sheriff, but the sheriff of downtown. And unfortunately, they're not doing truancy sweeps anymore or Operation Clean Sweep. Sheriff Discus, when he took office, decided to dismantle that program, which is one of the things that we know that our staff had used in prior years in an appropriate way to hold people accountable and make sure that the kids were coming to school to learn. And so I wanted you to know that we did that research this week and we're not able to levy that.
So I have a question, just to clarify, so that's the county made the decision?
The county sheriff.
The county sheriff?
Sheriff.
To dismantle the program that gets kids to school?
Clean sweep.
Clean sweep, yes.
Okay.
And that's a citation program. It's a last resort. You know, we want to try to work with our partners. But what used to happen was if there was chronic absenteeism, then we had authority as principals or directors, assistant superintendents, and so on, to do a citation that then a deputy would come alongside and sign off on. And then maybe those parents met at the sheriff's department, and we do meet at the sheriff's department now. They are a part of our school accountability review board. But that citation piece where maybe they even had to go to court, they're not doing it anymore.
Did they give a rationale?
Not the person that I talked to, but I can do some further research. It was a quick conversation with Mr. Mead, yes, a deputy who just retired.
Yeah.
Who works in the
I think it'd be interesting to find out what the rationale was behind that change.
I'll see what I can find out.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Rick. Okay. I will open up conduct the public hearing regarding our proposed 2023-24 budget at 7:36. I will close it at 7:37. Right, moving on to 5.08. This is regarding the Education Spending Act. And I believe this is a hearing also. Anything regarding this, Dr. Bremen?
Thank you, Mr. Stellings. Several years ago, Proposition 30 was passed in the state of California when we were facing a fiscal crisis. And so this is a report mandated that all of our Proposition 30 dollars are going for teachers. And so this is an acknowledgement that it is an exhibit, and this is something returned to the county.
Okay. I will conduct a public hearing on the 2023-24 Education Protection Act spending plan. I'll open the hearing at 7:38. Mr. Burton?
Yeah.
Come on up.
Thank you. All right, so Jamie, Eric, you might have to break this one down for me. Based on what you had just said, that this funding is used for teachers, right? In the body of the agenda item, it talks about Proposition 30 funds that are EPA funds are delegated out through LCFF, that the LEAs may not use EPA funds for salaries, benefits, administrators, administrative costs, such as general administration, school administration, and instructional administration. But you had just stated that it was for teachers. So is the admin different? Are teachers admin? Because this clearly states that these funds cannot be used for instructional. But when you've broken this down into your EPA allocation, you wrote it down for teacher salary, Medicare, unemployment insurance, and workers' compensation. But on your spending plan that's attached to this, it's strictly on instructional. So I'm confused as a layman trying to read what you're saying here when it says it may not be used for salaries, but you just said it was for teachers. And then your spending plan says it's for instructional. But then you're paying Medicare, unemployment insurance, and workers' compensation. So I'd like to get a clarification on how that's all playing out.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Okay. We're going to open the hearing. We open the hearing at 7:38. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. So the EPA cannot be used for administrative costs for administrators. So we consider administrators, principals, district office personnel, instructional administration. So when I say teachers, you are allowed to use it for teachers and their CalSTRS and their Medicare and unemployment insurance and workers' compensation. So I apologize if that was not spelled out, but yeah, for principals, directors, deans, we can't use this, but we can use it for teachers and associated costs with teachers. So,
okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Come up to the podium, please.
This will be the last question.
Okay.
So it can be used for teachers, but it cannot be used for admin, is what you just basically told me. So is there a separate workers' compensation insurance policy, Medicare policy, and unemployment insurance policy for admin separate from the teachers? Or is everything wrapped in one?
no, it's broken out in the budget. I can share that information for you. We separated by teachers, classified employees, administrators. So I can provide that for you following this meeting.
Separate policy though.
Not a policy. The only policy required because of Prop 30, the only policy required is this Prop 30 EPA document. But in our budget, in our 144-page document, we do lay out that those costs for different roles.
Okay,
So I can provide that.
and that funding source is allocated in the budget.
Yes,
So the Prop 30 is only tied to the teachers.
correct.
The Medicare and the insurance for the admins are tied to a different funding source.
General fund, just general LCFF.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Burton. We will now adjourn the hearing at 7:40. Okay, now we're moving on to business services. This is conducting a public hearing regarding the need for the excess of the minimum recommended reserve for economic uncertainties. Any more information, Dr. Reed? Okay, so I will open the hearing at 7. Any questions from the board? Okay. I'll open the meeting at 7:41. And I will close it at 7:42. Okay, I think it's our final hearing. All right, moving on to 5.10. This is regarding a bid for district-owned floor covering replacement. Do I have a motion for approval for Wildwood and Dunlap?
Move approval.
I have a motion by Board Member Bannister. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Got a second by Board Member Bob Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes unanimously. 5.11 is a piggyback on bids and contracts. Do I have a motion for approval? I have a motion by Board Member Coe, second.
Second.
Second by Board Member Bannister. Any questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Passes unanimously. 5.12 is the purchase of playground equipment for Wildwood Elementary School. Do I have a motion for approval?
Move approval.
I have a motion by Board Member Bannister and a second by Board Member Bob Miller and Dr. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Snelling. So I just want to point out, there was a teacher at Wildwood Elementary School who had a child in a wheelchair and was looking for accessible playground equipment. This teacher secured a $50,000 grant from the Warren Family Foundation, given through Rotary Club of Yucaipa. And so this will be fully funded, and we're excited and thankful for this playground equipment at Wildwood Elementary School from the donations from our community.
I'm glad that's outlined here because I know that's one of the gifts that we're approving tonight too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yay, Rotary, and thank you to that teacher.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. The next one is regarding electronic door entry at several district buildings. Do I have a motion for approval?
We'll do approve.
Got a motion by Board Member Bob Miller, a second by Board Member Coe. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 5-0. Our next item is actually rejecting bids in response to an RFP for managed technology services. Apparently, we only received one bid and we want to go out again, so we have a motion to approve this recommendation. Have a motion by Board Member Coe. I'll second the item. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Next, we have several single plans for student achievement, also called CECAs. Most of our school, and we've got some more that will be coming in, I believe. Yeah, okay. So this is a requirement with the ed code. Do I have a motion to approve the single plans for student achievement as presented?
Move approval.
I have a motion by Board Member Bannister. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Board Member Debbie Miller. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those all those that approve say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. The following one is related to our collective bargaining agreement. This is actually the Board of Education's proposed contract with CSEA. Do I have a motion to approve 5.16?
Move approval.
I have a motion by Board Member Bannister. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Board Member Coe. Any questions or comments? Okay.
For the charter or for What is, Assistant Superintendent, I'm sorry, Jim. This is just the now normal business, we're opening again to bargain, right?
Correct, Mr. Miller. Just to remind the board, this item was pulled at the last meeting at CECA's request to add more detail, which we've done. And so this is just you receiving it, and at the June 20th board meeting, we'll have a hearing on that. But right, it's a part of the regular annual process to entertain openers, the collective bargaining.
Thank you, and I apologize for, you're the Assistant Superintendent. of HR.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries 5-0. Now we have actually a public hearing. This is related to YCEA's proposed amendments to the collective bargaining agreement. I will open the hearing at 7:46. And I will close it at 7:47. And we're moving on now to the public hearing regarding the Board of Education's proposed contract amendments to YCEA. And I believe those were presented at the last meeting, correct? Okay. So I will open the hearing at 7:47. And I'll close it at 7:48. Okay. Now we're moving on to the consent calendar action session. Does any board member want either of these considered separately?
I do have a question on that, so do I need to do it separate?
Yeah, let's pull it separate.
6.02, the gifts.
Okay, 6.0, did you have a comment?
Yes, if you would allow President Stillings, we'd like to have Mrs. Jackson, our Director of Teaching, and Maurice talk a little bit about curriculum.
Okay. I know her. Come on up, Kathy. Oh.
Sorry.
She did dutifully stand up.
She did. But Jamie whisper something, I listen.
All right, we'll get it figured out. Okay, all right. So Debbie, you want 6.02 pulled separately,
Yeah.
correct? Okay. So do I have a recommendation to approve the consent calendar, items 6.01 and 6.03 through 6.11?
Move to approve.
I have a motion by board member Bob Miller. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by board member Sharon Bannister. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, motion carries. Let's move on to 6.02. Do I have a motion for approval of 6.02? I have a motion by board member Debbie Miller and a motion, a second, I'm sorry, by board member Coe. And Debbie, you have a comment or question?
Yes, so it says 50,000 from the Kuiper Rotary, but technically it's from the Warren Foundation, correct?
So that's correct. So the Warren Family Foundation can only donate to a 501c3, which the district is not. And so they work with Rotary Club of Yucaipa to make the donation to Yucaipa because they are a 501c3, and then the Rotary Club donated to the school district.
Okay, because I heard the Warren Foundation
Yeah.
and I heard Rotary, so it was from the Warren Foundation.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. I
Yes.
appreciate that.
And if I could add to that, Rotary and Mrs. Arat have worked together quite a bit because she worked with Early Act and Rotary, so she's been involved in Rotary in that capacity. So with that, she also just wanted to support Rotary in their continued work and made a donation. So they are going to be, Rotary will be a part of the dedication of the playground equipment along with Wildwood and Mrs. Arat, and then of course the board would be welcome as well.
Oh, cool.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Now I believe you'd like Ms. Jackson. Come on.
Thank you, President Stillings. Thank you, Mrs. Binks. I appreciate that. Mrs. Jackson, if you could please come on.
And this is related to these 4 textbook adoptions.
Yes. We're receiving for information proposal. This is for advanced placement.
Okay.
Literature. textbook.
All right.
And then also our world languages.
Very beautiful. I love my job, so having questions about curriculum. So thanks for the opportunity.
Good evening, board president Snellings,
Members of the board.
We can hear you.
Teacher voice. I can do that. Members of the board and
members of cabinet and community. It's my honor tonight, there you go. It's my honor tonight to present a recommendation for advanced placement for literature and composition. Our English language arts team at the high school has made this recommendation. I believe you have a report of findings for it. It's very detailed. If you want to see direct comments made by the teachers or any data of other curriculum that they may have looked at. The curriculum has been carefully selected by our dedicated teachers and brings several important benefits to our students. First and foremost, it will greatly enhance college readiness while equipping our students with the necessary skills and knowledge to excel in higher education. Additionally, it gives our students the opportunity to potentially earn college credits. Moreover, the curriculum integrates technology to foster digital literacy, an essential skill in today's world. Lastly, it supports teacher professional development, allowing our educators to stay updated and provide the best possible instruction for our kiddos. What was important to them in this report of findings was that the content be aligned with National College Board curricular recommendations. So when they are ready to take the AP test, that they can, if they want and pass, they can get the college credit. And that it be relevant and aligned. That was the recommendation. So thank you for considering these recommendations. And like I said, you guys have the report of findings. You want to dive in.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
We have our presentations on the other three too, or, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Jackson's helping with world languages, and then Dr. Moffat has our music.
Okay, all right. Okay, Kathy.
Okay, so hello again. I tried to jump the gun, not stay here. So I also have the pleasure of presenting on our world language program. And here in our district, that is Spanish, Spanish AP, French, and French AP. We had a team of 12 teachers, including the department chair from the high school working on this, and they worked very hard. It is a 39-page document, the report of findings that you have to look at as well. You're proposing the adoption of VISTA program for our secondary. It'll be for our middle and high school. So we're really excited that it's the same publisher and it will align. It offers an immersive and proficiency-based approach that will revolutionize our language education. By using this program, our students will have authentic language experiences. This was a huge, important part for our teachers, allowing them to truly engage with the language and culture they are studying. As you're learning something new, you want it to be fun and engaging, so that was important to them. Moreover, VISTA fosters cultural appreciation, helping our students to develop a deeper understanding and respect for the culture. The program also integrates technology, making learning more interactive and engaging. With VISTA, we can provide personalized learning experiences tailored to each student's needs. By embracing this innovative curriculum, we are equipping our students with the skills necessary to thrive in a globalized world. They will develop effective communication skills, intercultural competence, and open doors to numerous academic and professional opportunities, such as the opportunity to obtain the state seal of bioliteracy. That's definitely growing for us in our district. Exciting. Thank you for considering this recommendation and support for our students to have a comprehensive and innovative language education. So again, if you guys want more detail, there are in the report of findings for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Brown's going to come up to, oh, I guess it's Linda. I'm sorry. Hi, Dr. Moffat. Hello.
So good evening, President Snellings, members of the board, Superintendent Binks, members of cabinet. Thank you for this opportunity to share information about our elementary music program and the recommended adoption of the SAVIS interactive music. In February, a committee convened to review several elementary music programs. The committee included Dustin McClellan, our elementary music teacher, Kathy Jackson, Megan Hill, and myself. keeping the needs of our students at the center of the collaboration and finding a curriculum that would complement our current music program of recorders and choir, we narrowed the list of programs down to 2 high-quality programs. Savis Interactive Music and McGraw-Hill Spotlight on Music. Mr. McClellan piloted both programs in the spring. Using data collected by Mr. McClellan during the pilot, the committee reviewed both programs using criteria that measured engagement, ease of use, music appreciation, the history of music, cross-curricular connections, and assessments. After evaluating both programs, the team chose Savis Interactive Music. The strengths of the Savis curriculum include every lesson comes with a concise lesson plan that shows how all the components of the lesson should be used and provides clearly defined assessments for each lesson. The program is easy to use and makes moving from one segment of the lesson to the next quick and simple. There is a large selection of songs that provides music from different cultures and time periods. Savis is aligned with the visual and performing arts standards and has a wealth of educational opportunities for our students to engage with music. The elementary music program is a very important part of the school day where the students can create and perform music. The end of year concerts were evidence of the excitement and joy our students get from participating in a music program, and Savis Interactive Music will enhance that experience. Thank you for considering this recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Moffitt. And I'm assuming that are we going to be taking action on this on June 20th? So supposedly, and they're available for review in the district office up until that time. I know that this is teacher driven and that's the way it should be. Okay, any comments or questions?
Just that those are the 4 sets of curriculum in the back.
Okay, so now we're going to additional administrative information. Ms. Pinks.
I just wanted to, I wanted to let the board know that I am continuing to work with our partners for different things that we're partnering on. Dr. Anderson mentioned the work with Crafton Hills College, and we are continuing to work on our dual enrollment. One of the things you might hear in the community from our students is why can't we take certain periods, and why can't I have a second period if I first period? One of the things that Dr. Anderson is the alignment of time. Schedule to the hours. And so I don't know, Dr. Anderson, if you would want to comment any more on that, but I know that we have a lot of very anxious students who want to get that dual enrollment, but we did run into that little bit.
When we work with Crafton Hills, they have a different calendar and different times. So we do the best we can working with our partners with that. So sometimes if we have a course on campus, then I know Mr. Gervais is doing a great job in trying to figure that out. Because with Crafton, we have to align, it's so many minutes of class. So we don't just say, well, we have first semester and that's what we do. They count the actual hours. So if students get done early, then we have to come up with a plan on what the students do that particular period for the remainder of the semester. So part of that also is if we have a late start Monday, then we have to make sure that we're working together with their academic senate at Crafton to align that. Other pieces can be too, if students want to go to Crafton during the school day and take a separate course that maybe isn't taught on our campus. So I know that our high school team's doing a really good job in working with our students and families if they want to do that as well, and trying to make a schedule that matches that.
Also wanted to mention that Jumpstart has started, and we have the high school, due to the projects going on, the asphalt and the air conditioning in the gym and so on. We have summer school at Mesa View, and then we have our other programs at Chapman Heights. Did I say people? Okay. CECA and Chapman, and we've had Lance has been out and about taking pictures, and I heard teachers talking this afternoon that enrollment seems to be picking up, where they maybe have 11 kids one day, 15 kids the next day. We heard our candidates say that today, and so we just want to make sure our community knows that we are doing summer school along with what Dr. Anderson talked about with the IXL program, just to help close any achievement gaps our students might have.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Snells. I'd just like to thank Amber Tavis and her team, our fiscal coordinator, for the budget. We're dealing with $130 million general fund, and she has to project and predict and make assumptions over 3 years. So an outstanding job by her and her team.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Amber. Okay, we're going to move on to board comments. Board member Bob Miller.
Very brief tonight, I promise. And just a couple things. I really enjoyed, obviously, my first bit of doing the graduations. And a couple of things came out. First of all, I felt it was seamless, the high school graduation. I'm sure there was hard people working behind the scene, and there may have been a hiccup here or two, but it looked seamless to me. The fifth grade promotions or celebrations, seamless, hardworking people behind the scenes, uplifting, just beautiful ceremonies. Even the kindergartner sliding down on a slide to go to slide to first grade. I mean, it was beautiful stuff. And so I left personally very encouraged. The future is bright for our students. And I just thought it was wonderful. I appreciate all the hard work of the staff and all the work they do to put everything together behind the scenes, because I was trying to look at it from a parent viewpoint. What would a parent see in the celebration of their children for the achievements they've had? It was just wonderful. And that's all I want to say.
Okay, board member Debbie Miller.
Just a couple things. I don't know if Stacy's still here, Tucker. I think the Stop It app is amazing. And I appreciate you discussing it, because that was something that I had talked to Ms. Binks about, that I think we need to promote it more and maybe help the students and the parents understand it more, that it is anonymous. And because I was disappointed with several things that happened throughout the year, that it wasn't recorded by students. I know there's students out there that want to say something, but they might be afraid. So I appreciated you speaking about that, because I think it's a great app and I think we need to promote it more. Yeah.
We've gotten quite a bit of use on it, and I want to say that the only time that it isn't anonymous is when there's something like threatening, or that someone has information about a crime. And the third-party app, which is Stop It, that's the company, they're the third-party carrier. They have to get a restraining order, a search warrant, in order to get actual student information. But they do that really quickly, especially if there is some kind of mental health issue or some student is in danger. So we've been really pleased with them. We receive calls at all hours of the night. They go through all of us kind of in order as we said just about. And if we don't answer, then it goes directly to the police department and they will respond. The students that report, or the parents that report, actually have talked about how this is a lot easier to use than WeTip. We were using WeTip, but in the time I've been here, and maybe in the 10 years, I probably have gotten maybe 7 WeTips total. And so in the first 6 weeks, we had over 100 tips. And some of them are jokes. Some of them are absolutely things that we need to investigate, and we do. And I can give the board some information about the time it takes us to close it out. So,
Thank you.
Anything else, Debbie?
No, that's it.
Okay, board member Bannister.
I really have nothing to add. I enjoyed the graduation very much. I went to the adult school graduation, was beautiful, and the high school graduation always brings a tear to my eye. Just lovely.
Board member Coe.
Yes, again, the graduations, it was pretty amazing. Some of my own students were walking across that stage, so thank you for a job well done there. As far as all the LCAP things and the budgeting, thank you for your hard work. I know that it was very detailed and tedious, and I appreciate all of your responses to our questions, even though I don't say I'm not here, but I appreciate your efforts and work there. Good job.
Okay. I too was able to go to the high school graduation as well as adult ed, Green Valley and Oakview. And I really appreciate, and like board member Bob Miller says, a lot of the work is behind the scenes to make it seem so seamless. Because I know there's a lot of activity prior to that might not be seamless to the people who are trying to run it. But from our viewpoint, they were all really great. The kids were just so well behaved this year. And I mean, all of the graduations are special and they're each in each way. So I really do appreciate that. The other thing, I just want to bring up one other thing. I know, I believe from what I've been told, there were some comments made about the district and our participation in the proposed library in Yucaipa. We own, if I understand, we own the Sizzler, what we call the Sizzler lot, where Sizzler used to be before it got burnt down and put out by some trainees, I believe. And there's some money that's supposed to come in from the county. There's been some talk from the city. We own the land. I'm trying to sort through that because the implication is that the district doesn't really want to participate in that, and I know that's not true. And so are we meeting with folks, or what's going on with that?
Yes, thank you, President Snellings. I appreciate the question. For probably the past, probably since 2018-19, we've been working with the city of Yucaipa to do a community project that would include a library on the property that the district would consider donating with the board's approval. Because one of the things that they know is that the demographics of the area around the high school are some of our underserved families. And so they want to, the idea is to have a library where it's more accessible than the one that is currently on Fifth Street. Also, that library is too small for the amount of the population that the city serves now. And the building, it was from 1970s, and it doesn't meet all the requirements. But the one thing I will say, as the county of San Bernardino does the programming, it's a busy place. They get a lot of traffic. And I think the statistics where they have the 5th highest traffic in the county. So that's pretty amazing when you think about the bigger cities. So with that, the prior city manager and I had met several times, and Dr. Green and myself, and at the time, Mr. Kirkland, who was the high school principal, had toured some library facilities and talked about what that could look like. So now, the most recent information I can give you is that the city of Yucaipa, myself and Dr. Bremen, along with the county CEO from San Bernardino County, Mr. Leonard Hernandez, we've had a meeting to kind of bring up the new administration in the city of Yucaipa, bring them up to speed on what it looks like. We did have a library grant meeting prior to the arrival of the new city manager, where the actual state librarian came to attend, and I think you had an opportunity to be in that piece of it. And that was a bit ago though. And so with that, the state librarian loved the idea, felt like it was necessary for our city to have it. And so with that, we wanted to continue to partner with the new administration, or with the grant. There was a $9 million grant and then a $9 million need for a match. One of the things the district talked about doing again was donating the land, and that was what we had intended all along. That was accepted by prior administration. As we move forward, there's still a strong desire on the district's part, as well as we work with the county of San Bernardino. Also, the Friends of the Library are working hard and advocating to continue the library project. And so as we work with them along with the city of Yucaipa, we are still pushing forward. We're committed. I was in a meeting today. Dr. Anderson and I went, and we met with the city of Yucaipa along with San Manuel Band of Indians. And so with that, we were sharing what programming could look like and how we could honor the heritage of the land in the Dunlap area. So that was just as today. So we are recently involved, and we'll continue to stay involved to the best of our ability. And I'm hoping that it goes through.
Okay, and we are still committed. Well, I don't think we're committed yet, but we're still interested in allowing them to use our land that we own to be able to help facilitate that process.
Yes, in fact, we initiated drawing up a document for how that would work to support the other two entities. So how does that work in partnership? Well, you need to have papers and a lease and things. So the district initiated those.
Okay, all right. Well, looking forward to
I
more
have a
about that.
question.
Go ahead.
So with the grant, is there a time limit on using the grant we've already been granted?
There is.
The grants to the city,
The
correct?
grant is to the city. The city actually applied as a sole applicant.
Okay.
And so there's a timeline for sticks in dirt, as well as the use of the full grant. And so there are a couple things, as we know, inflation is really high, and the original dollar amount, around 18 million, is not going to cover the cost of the building now. And so there could be opportunities if the city is the grant holder, so they have to petition the state if they want to extend that grant, to make the timeline a little more friendly for the inflation that's occurring right now. We don't have any control of that. That's just in the city's hands.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to moving forward on that.
Yes.
That process. That would be a great use for that land right there by the high school. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So now we're moving on to memorial adjournment. The Ucayali-Mesa Joint Unified School District Board of Education this day will adjourn in memory of Miguel Ramirez, who served as a custodian at Competitive Edge Charter Academy and Ridgeview Elementary School and retired on March 2nd, 2023. Miguel passed away on May 24th, 2023. So we will adjourn in his memory and in support of his family tonight. We are adjourned.